This phone has got a hard casing, right? But inside there's a software. If the software don't work, it means that the phone won't work. It's exactly the same principle. Now, it's not working. Ah, okay. So remember we were talking about okay, remember this picture? And the brain communicates, okay, from neuron to neuron. As you can see there, you see that flows up there, that red. That's what you call dopamine. It comes from the sending neuron to the receiving neuron, and that is how the cell communicates. Okay? Now, neuron to neuron communications is, as you can see there, I speak to you, you listen to, you hear exactly what I'm saying. And on the right-hand side, on the right-hand side, that is how neurons communicate in the brain. A neuron is a brain cell.
Meth causes dopamine to flood our receptors.
So the reason why I want you to watch this again and see how the drug is in the form of methamphetamine or tip affects the brain and how it gives the brain, or rather damages the brain through the dopamine levels. Remember we spoke about dopamine. What does dopamine do? It's a feel-good chemical. It's a feel-good chemical in the brain for reward and many other things that you do to feel good about yourself and also find satisfaction in the things that you are doing.
Meth causes dopamine to flood our receptors. When we stay up taking more and more meth, we exhaust our dopamine supply.
So the more meth you take or any other drugs you take, it depletes. In other words, the dopamine dries up in the brain. Okay? So that is really the reason why, and I'm going to explain to you what happens after that. Listen to
the
the
regular
video.
dose doesn't give us the same rush, we take more. But now when meth reaches the brain, it finds a lot less dopamine. Plus, meth has destroyed transporters. And on the receiving neuron, all that overstimulation we loved has caused receptors to withdraw. So it's just harder to get high. No matter how much meth we use, we can never recapture that first rush.
So in the beginning it's fine, all the dopamine is there, but as you continue to use the drug, the dopamine chemical in the brain begins to reduce, or it dries up completely. And now what happens? Now you do not have any more reward. You don't feel good about yourself. Remember the verse that we quoted the other day, the enemy has come to do what? Kill, steal, and destroy. You see, Satan attacks the brain. Whether you're on drugs or not, you will always attack the brain, because this is where you are thinking. Your frontal cortex here, your frontal lobe, is where you reason and think how to function responsibly. Now, as soon as the dopamine levels are gone and dried up into your brain, you cannot function properly. And then you get high. So what does it do? It floods the brain, as you can see there. I've shown you how the drug floods the brain and how the dopamine levels then depletes. Now, and then the person becomes addicted. So when the person becomes addicted, you find that the brain, there's nothing else that matters in that person's mind. The only thing that is that makes sense for them is to get up in the morning to go and smoke. That is why they will steal, they will kill, they will do anything, because the only thing that is in the brain, because you see, this part of the brain tells this part of the brain that this is your only survival. Nothing else in life matters. Your children don't matter, your mother don't matter, no one matters in your life. Only the addiction matters, or the substance that you are using matters in your life. And then you become depressed. So what happens is that once they're on a high, let's say they've been smoking the whole weekend, and then on Monday they go into a crash. Okay? Remember, there's no dopamine in the brain any longer. So they become confused and cognitive impairment, and also thought of suicide because they are depressed. And the chemicals that keeps you going and keeps you wanting to be more motivated about life is no more there, and then you become depressed and suicidal thoughts. Do you know how many suicides we have in our community because of drugs? Too many to count. And then you become paranoid. Now this is a very funny one, because I can give you a whole lot of stories about paranoia when you are on drugs. Some of them, they are so fearful. If you know what paranoia is, you create an idea and it becomes real in your mind. So you think you are under surveillance. You think everybody's watching you. Hier loop voorbij mensen daar, so hulle gesels daar met praat maar eie dinge. Hier loop voorbij en dan sê hulle, okay, hulle praat van my. You see? Some of them are so paranoid that one knock at the door, they think, oh, who's looking for me? The police or somebody's looking. Moenie oopmaak nie. It's just a normal knock. But because of the paranoia, they feel that some people are always, they're always under investigation, or they're always being watched. So, and then there's the aggression. Remember, I spoke to you about how the drug damages your senses in the brain, especially your emotional senses. They have no more. They are numb to emotions. Remember the girl I told you about? Said, Uncle Winston, I love my children, but when I want my drugs, there's nothing else that matters. I've been taking people to shopping, people that I've recovered, and when I take them for shopping, they say, but we never bought these things. They get, let's say they've got a few children and they get about, say, 2,000 to 2,500 rand from Sasa. Guess what? They will only buy groceries for 300 rand. The rest goes for the drug. And guess what? The children suffers, everybody suffers, but they don't even see it because their feelings are numb. So, aggression is heavy. Because you cannot control your emotions, they become very aggressive and violent, even to take out a knife. I mean, when I counsel couples, the screaming matches that goes on there in those counseling sessions, because everybody's blaming everybody, and I tell you now, if there's a knife anywhere near there, they'll just take it and stab. And then they get what you call hallucinations. Users also often suffer from precursory delusions and beliefs. People are out to get them and they are under serious surveillance. That is also part of the paranoia and the hallucinations. They begin to hear voices and they see things and they start chatting with people as if they're talking to somebody right next to them. There's a guy here who always comes and arrests me. I don't know if you remember, those who attend church here. He comes here and then he screams my name. Oh, Uncle Winston, I was talking to them again. You used to be, used to install these antennas for DSTV. And he tells me, they're now speaking to me through the DSTV channels. And he hears their voices literally, and he tells me what they tell him. Sometimes I say that you don't have to be demon-possessed when you're on drugs, because the demons are always around you. And that's a fact. And then memory loss. Remember I spoke about memory loss yesterday as well? Because short-term and long-term memory, kaput. You send him now, or her, to go and perform a task, they will come back and say, why are you back? And they don't even know why they're back. because they never they couldn't remember why they went for a certain task. And then learning. Did you know, especially those that are on Nyaupe and you have a degree, maybe a postgraduate degree in whatever field you were studying, but when you are on Nyaupe, specifically Nyaupe, after using the drug for a while, you become as learned as a grade 8 from a degree. The brain shrinks, and the neurons in the brains, your cell, you suffer from cell death. So even if you have studied for years, it reverses back as if you are just a grade 8. You can't even reason with that person. It doesn't mean that crystal meth is not the same. And then uncontrollable movements. This one is really funny though. Because you see, I can walk normal like this. But you know, over time, because it also affects the part in your brain that controls your movement, your walk begins to change. Because they get tremors. Sometimes involuntary movements, because you cannot control your mobility, your movement of your hands and your feet. So it also impairs the frontal lobe. So this is the frontal lobe here. This part of your brain is where you make executive decisions. You wake up in the morning, you know you've got to go to work, you've got children to feed, you've got a wife whom you love, and you want to make sure that your family is happy and you are satisfied. It gives you gratifications to know that you can do good for your family. But this part of the brain also helps you to make moral decisions about God. The enemy has come to do what? So what happens here? He removes even your ability to want to serve God. Young girls, including the boys, they don't care about the consequences of their decisions. She can sell herself anytime. I remember I was, visiting some people at a lolly lounge that I was counseling, and there was this young, beautiful girl. And she asked me, "So, Uncle, what do you do?" I said, "No, I'm a counselor. I help people to get off the drugs." And she said nice to me and said, "Uncle, I have this problem, my child in the hospital and so on. Don't you want to sleep with me and then just give me 50 rand so that I can go with my child?" I said, I was so shocked. I look at this child and I'm thinking to myself, what? I didn't even know what to say to her. I was shocked. And then I tell her, my child, I don't do those things. I cannot do that. I will not even give you the 50 rand because I know you're going to buy drugs. It's got nothing to do about your children. But I can help you. So they don't care about the consequences of what happens in their lives. And then there's the tolerance, okay? Obviously the inability to experience pleasure. So here's the thing about the drug, okay? When you cannot experience pleasure, I've asked for 5 minutes. When you cannot experience pleasure, guess where you get the pleasure from? You have to now go to the merchant who sells the drug to go and buy a packet of pleasure for 50 rand. Because the dopamine in your brain that gives you the original pleasure is gone. And now you are dependent on a packet to go buy a packet of drugs so that you can feel happy and euphoric. So, obsessive behavior. The repetitive behavior, we are so obsessed. You'll find that I sometimes walk in these Zozos and I find there's a whole corner there with a lot of electronics, a broken TV, broken phones, broken this, broken that. They never seem to finish the job that they've started because they cannot, they don't know what it means to to start something and finish something. So it disrupts the brain's ability to control itself, and also they cannot stop. They're always on the go. But the only thing that motivates them is the drug, nothing else. Was that the last one? No, somebody disconnected me. Did you disconnect me? So, well, we were almost done with the presentation, but what I really want to express to you and make you aware of is that there is hope. Amen. We have counseled many. They're living normal lives. They're back with their wives. Their children are happy. The one guy and his family, they were here at this church. They even got baptized here, and they're living normal lives. It is possible because these conditions are not permanent as soon as the person gets onto treatment. It's not permanent. Even the schizophrenic behavior, even the paranoia behavior, and also the cross-bipolar paranoia behavior do get better because these are temporary mental health conditions. You do not have to take them to the Grundakker. You know, we can recover them. So if you have a loved one whom you are concerned about, we also do family counseling because the families also need to recover from trauma from the one who's been on drugs. Parents are crying out there.